Hello and welcome back to Questions from Quarantine. I'm here with Dr. Margaret Bourdeaux and Professor Juliette Kayyem of the Belfer Center. Our first question this week is going to Dr. Bourdeaux, and it is about vaccines. There's a lot out there about vaccines right now. AstraZeneca is in the news today. Margaret, we're hoping you can give us a little more clarity on what's going on with the vaccine situation, and then Professor Kayyem after that, if you could let us know what a rollout might look like when vaccines are available. Margaret?
Sure, and if people are confused, I totally get it. There is this vaccine development process is being, conducted under a microscope on an election year with a tremendous pressure to produce something. So just to kind of give you a sense of how things are supposed to work, or at least plan. So, the US government launched something called Operation Warp Speed, which was to try to identify a set of possible vaccine candidates to stimulate development of these candidates by paying pharmaceutical companies to do the research and development, and also to guarantee that they would buy those products even if they were a wash. So the vaccine development, in general goes through three types of clinical trials. You've heard of this: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 is all about safety and efficacy. I mean, can you give this to people and a very small group of people and make sure they're not sickened by it, and at what dose they won't be sickened by it. Phase 2 is usually when you expand to include people who are kind of your target audience, target recipients for a vaccine. And you also do a lot of measurements to see whether there's an immune response. Now, that doesn't tell you if it actually protects you from infection. It just says that your body is responding. And those are very careful studies of exactly how the immune system is reacting to a vaccine. And then there's phase 3 clinical trials. And that's really where you go out into the world and you give the vaccine to thousands of people in the context of where there is circulating virus. So you actually have to have an outbreak or an epidemic in order to do phase 3 clinical trials of a vaccine. And then you watch what happens to people and you see whether they get sick or have any adverse reactions to the vaccine. And then ultimately you see how many of them get infected versus those who didn't get the vaccine. So that's where we are now. There are, various candidates have advanced to phase 3 clinical trials, and this is happening. And there's a board that watches very carefully, that reviews the data coming out from the vaccine, and they're seeing whether there are any adverse effects. And then they'll often take a pause and say, wait, okay, we're seeing this adverse effect, this bad thing that happened to somebody that got the vaccine. We're going to pause and understand better what happened. And they also may come out and say, hey, we're really seeing efficacy. We're seeing response. We're seeing that some people are being protected. So we're going to, we have enough data to feel comfortable that this actually offers enough of a benefit. So that's just how it works. And so the news with this pause for one of the candidates, because there may have been an adverse effect, just normal. That's how this works. I think that a unique thing that is happening is that there is so much political pressure from the administration being put on the vaccine developers that people are really worried that they're going to cut corners and respond to that pressure. And so that's why it was sort of, historic, really, that yesterday, I think it was something like 9 of the CEOs from these pharmaceutical companies came out and said, we are not going to respond to political pressure, which, it is in their narrow financial best interest to be the first, to wave and say, oh, we reached the. So it's kind of remarkable in that way. I think, however, it is also ultimately in all of their best interests to have a population that trusts the vaccine.
There's nothing that will make pro-science people more anti-vaccine than the idea that this thing is being pushed. And that's and then, just coupled with the other stuff that I work in, the Russian disinformation, the Russian pretending like they have a vaccine, the fact that we have gotten out of the global vaccine pursuit. So we're sort of completely dependent on our own testing and our own companies is really, is something that can be fixed by a new president relatively quickly, but nonetheless puts us far behind with a president who knows that we won't have a vaccine by November 1st, but wants to make at least his supporters believe that we will, and that's gonna cause some unnerve within the scientific community. I'll tell you, amongst the governors, I talk to a lot of their offices. I work with organizations that work with governors. They received a letter last week from the FDA saying. CDC saying, get your act together by November 1st for distribution. We have a well-known distribution company that has done this before, but there's no money behind it. There's no real chronology behind it. So they just viewed this as a letter for the White House to be able to say, we sent the letter, get ready. It's not operationally tied to any progress.
I also do want to make another comment here in terms of what I'm seeing. So the other reason I'm really worried about the political pressure in the vaccine is not only does it endanger sort of trust in the vaccine and the production process, but it is also causing leaders that we need to lean into a more robust public health response to pull back from that. And so we have just basically my entire summer was trying to motivate governors to come together to embrace and undertake not very challenging public health measures, but on paper, but it really would require political orchestration and trying to invest in adopt common standards, invest in sharing mechanisms for tests and testing, and that really was that push has been really destabilized by a tidal wave of narrative coming in saying, don't worry about this public health stuff, we got to have a vaccine.
I just think with the vaccine that we're just in this weird period between October and November 3rd, and then we'll take in when's the election? November 3rd, like take an accounting after that. And I think that's what Big Pharma did, is they just bought themselves some 2 months or how many days it is.
Well, thank you both so much. This has been Questions from Quarantine. For your chance to be featured next week, please hashtag us Questions from Quarantine. Thank you for watching.